Hello and a warm welcome to another edition of To The Point. On the show this week, Union Minister for Railway, Power and Finance, Mr. Piyush Goyal. I welcome you on To The Point.
Thank you.
My first question to you is that railways is the biggest public sector undertaking. And your journey in the last 48 months, if I were to ask you at the beginning, how has it been?
Well, I think this has been a journey where we are changing the mindset of the Indian Railways. Over the years, the railways had started getting into a state of decay. There were huge backlogs of maintenance works, safety-related works. The entire thinking of the railways was one of lack of funds, lack of ability to really meet the needs of the people of India. Projects used to be delayed for years and years. We have some projects which are going on for 40 years. Scarce resources were divided amongst a lot of competing demands and projects. Because of it, nothing was getting completed. There were huge overruns of time, cost. And frankly, we've hardly been able to expand the infrastructure of the railways in over 65 years of independence.
Because of the backlog.
2014. Prime Minister Modi really committed large amounts of capital and investment in the railways. We've almost seen a 2.5 time investment only in the capex in the railways in the last 4 years. We've seen projects getting completed. We've seen a focused attention on projects of high national importance. We've seen connectivity reach very remote areas which were erstwhile suffering from incomplete projects. We've seen a huge thrust on cleanliness. We've seen a huge thrust on taking forward the dedicated freight corridor. We are now looking at safety of passengers as paramount, which means track renewal has gone at a mission mode. Last year alone, we did 4,400 kilometers of replacement of bad track, which otherwise is a safety hazard. We are looking at electrification being taken up in right earnest. So we have in the last year done 4,087 kilometers, which have been newly electrified, as against probably 650 or 700 kilometers done in 2013-14. So the pace of action that we are seeing in the railways has completely gone to the next level now.
As far as the right noises and the action is concerned, of course, the mindset is changing and the government is doing a lot. But coming to the specifics, like in terms of the loss of passengers, on short hauls, the railway passengers have been lost to the bus services. On the long hauls, the railway passengers have been lost to the air services. So what is the government really doing to bring back its dedicated passengers?
Well, clearly every organization likes to keep growing its passenger base or its customer base, and railways is equally keen and committed to that. We do understand that because of this huge backlog that we are now trying to complete, and in the railways any such work of capex nature or maintenance nature involves stopping trains in the form of a traffic block. So when you block the traffic, you are delaying trains, you have to ensure that in a defined time the work is completed. So the challenges in the railways are significantly different from other sectors. It's not a standalone project that you're working on. There's a lot of interface with the existing network. And in that situation, we've certainly had our fair share of challenges in the last few months. We are working to work in a more planned fashion when it comes to stopping these trains, when it comes to probably re-timetabling the existing passenger trains, to ensure that we see better punctuality. We are looking at working with the catering services, with the housekeeping services for better passenger amenities on the train. We are looking at providing services like Wi-Fi across the rail network. We're looking at providing CCTV cameras on the train and on the platform stations so that security of women, children and all our passengers is ensured. So it's an effort to bring in an all-round change in the way the railways has worked over the years and the way we are preparing the railways to be future ready.
But as you said that the maintenance of the tracks and the other activities do take a lot of time and you have to reschedule the timetable altogether. So is it because of these structural changes which are taking place that maybe the passengers are moving to maybe the air services or the bus services?
Well, I think it's a healthy sign if other competing modes of transport also are able to meet the needs of passengers. And as Prime Minister Modi often says that he always wished to see the poor of the country also having the ability to take flights. So as he said, हवाई चप्पल पहनने वाला व्यक्ति भी आज हवाई जहाज में सफ़र कर पा रहा है. और उड़ान के माध्यम से हमने इसको सुनिश्चित किया है, remote areas are getting connected with air connectivity. So I think it's a great sign for a developing and emerging economy like India. Having said that, railways will have to perk up, will have to tone up its action, tone up its affairs also. We'll have to ensure timely running of trains, we'll have to ensure that freight reaches on time. And all of us in the railways are very conscious of our responsibilities towards that. And people will come and avail of a service only when we ensure that these are well taken care of.
We often, when it comes to the railway ministry, often we've seen ministers changing whenever an accident takes place. Some portfolio changes and the railway ministers, normally in the past also during UPA regime, we saw that the ministers used to change. And of course, safety is the paramount factor which is driving all the ministers and the government all the time. Now, what about revving up the safety at the moment? When it comes to maintenance of tracks, of course, that is taking place. But what other changes are taking place, keeping in mind the safety aspect?
First of all, I must draw your attention to the fact that last year, we've seen the best safety record of the railways. Accidents are down to double digit after many, many, many years. Safety is not only about maintenance, it's not only about replacing tracks, it's also about introduction of technology. Now, sadly, some people make politics even when we try to bring technology into the country. So we have a project, the bullet train project of the high-speed corridor Mumbai to Ahmedabad. While it's only the first of its kind, and ideally we would like to see many more coming up across the country, sadly, some people are making political issues even out of that project, just like they did when the Rajdhani came in. Now, I think when we bring in new technology, Shinkansen technology that we have finalized has a 100% safety record. It has a 99.9% on-time punctuality record. Now, ultimately, the railways can't live in the 18th and 19th century. It will have to connect with modern day technologies. It will have to bring in the world-class and best-of-class facilities for the people of India, for the passengers. And this government stands committed to ensuring that. So for safety, for example, we had two designs of coaches, the ICF and LHP. LHP are far superior and better. So we've discontinued manufacturing ICF coaches and now are producing 100% LHP coaches in the country. Similarly, on introducing technology on the maintenance front. So when you're measuring the wheel of the locomotive or the coaches, now we have modern technologies which can do it far more efficiently. We're trying to introduce that in the country. So different ways in which this government is engaging with modern technology, with artificial intelligence, with better ways of doing the same work which was happening for so many years. And I'm confident that all of these put together will have an impact on the future of the railways.
But when you talk about the replacement of the ICF coaches with the LHB coaches, are you looking at a particular deadline? Because people have been writing off and on about the pace of production at which the LHB coaches are being produced.
I think there's a certain time frame in which these coaches, the old coaches, either get condemned or are due for an overhaul. And broadly, when we did the assessment, we found that over the next 8 years, all the old ICF coaches which are already produced and are in use will either require an overhaul or will get condemned. So we are timing it in such a fashion that we ramp up LHB production so that in the next 8 years we will have all our passenger traffic on LHB coaches.
Okay, so
that is itself for a railway the size of India, a humongous target, a humongous task, and possibly never ever before attempted by any railway of this size in the world.
When you talk about the railway ministry, we also saw railway ministers like Lalu Yadav and Mamta Banerjee overcrowding certain corridors like West Bengal and Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, of course. Being the entire measure used to be populist, driving all the trains towards those tracks. Those kind of things actually are not happening with the present government at all. But how do you bring down the traffic? Because we see the trains which are overcapacitated to 150%. So how do you bring down the crowd on those tracks?
It's very unfortunate what happened during those inglorious years of Ms. Mamta Banerjee and Mr. Lalu Prasad Yadav. But sadly, both of them left behind a terrible legacy for the railways. They overcrowded trains, they in fact overloaded freight trains, which badly damaged and mauled the track infrastructure of the Indian railways. The focus being on towards one part of the country, while they introduced tons and tons of trains, but they never expanded the infrastructure, which is why on many of these lines, we have utilization factors of 150%, in some 180%. So you can imagine how difficult it is to manage and how unwieldy that traffic on that section has become. But at the same time, we cannot now cut down that traffic. So what we are focusing on is building up the dedicated freight corridor to take off some of the traffic onto that. We'll be looking at bringing in modern signaling technology. We'll be looking at bringing in faster trains. Once electrification happens, the train speeds will improve. We'll be looking at building up a better infrastructure to take this additional load and bring relief to the passengers and meet the needs of freight in that region also.
You just spoke about the freight, but looking at the revenue earnings of railways, we see a huge gap in what the government targets and the actual receipts. Now, which are the sources from where you are actually thinking of revving up the revenue for railways?
This year in April, May, we've seen some robust growth in freight traffic, almost 8% growth in the amount of freight we've carried, which is a good sign, which will give us good additional revenue. Apart from that, we are looking at non-fare revenues being revved up, particularly on advertising and display networks, monetizing some of the excess land that we have, so that all of that can be used to fund the railways requirements. And apart from that, we're also looking at how we can improve the efficiency of spending of the railways. Lastly, we are seeing how we can use our existing assets better. So, for example, we had a train called Gatiman, which went Delhi to Agra. It was a 2.25-hour journey in the morning and returning in the evening, and sitting idle for the rest of the time. It's India's premier, #1 train, fastest train, best train, but doing 4.5 hours journey in a day.
It's not feasible.
We expanded it took it further to up to Gwalior in the first instance. So we added distance and some more commute and passengers. Then we thought, why not look at another level of expansion? We took it now up to Jhansi. So now the country's best train goes to the most underdeveloped area in the country, Bundelkhand, which over the years has remained deprived of rapid development, which many parts of the country have seen. So I'm delighted that the Modi government has been able to give the privilege and the benefit of the best train in the country to the Bundelkhand region, taking passengers from Delhi to Jhansi. And I'm sure that will add to the economic activity and the future development of that region.
But Mr. Goyal, when you talk about the high-speed trains, we've of course seen the categories of the Rajdhani Express, then comes the Tejas Express and the trains running up to 200 kilometers per hour. But laying down of tracks still is a very, very big issue. Now, is there a particular deadline you have in mind that, all these trains which are coming up, maybe in certain phases, you would be able to complete the track by that time? Because there are questions being raised that when the tracks are not ready, then what is the need to bring in these kind of high-speed trains?
Well, the high-speed trains are largely being brought in sections which can take the high-speed trains. But yes, it would be a great idea if we could convert the entire rail network to make it suitable for maybe 160 kilometer speed or some such speed. And we are in the process of considering proposals so that at least the golden quadrilateral and the diagonals, the main area which carries nearly 58% of the traffic in the Indian railways, can in the initial stage be made ready to or suitable for at least 160 kilometers per hour.
But when you talk about corridors like the golden quadrilateral you spoke about many times, and it's been a prevalent problem in India that many times people tamper with the tracks. Now, how do you really prevent that no tampering with the tracks happens? Are we using any kind of technology? I mean, how do we make the system absolutely fail-proof?
Well, if the intention is to cause damage, then you're well aware that we have laws in this country, we have all sorts of policing, but despite that, people can get away with nefarious activities. So if there's a deliberate attempt to tamper the track and all, we still have our own intelligence network, our RPF working, the GRP working and all, to try and ensure that such things don't happen. But technology can play a role also when it comes to ensuring that the track has a continuous flow of electricity and there's no tampering along the way. We on our side are trying to introduce the best of technologies, but we'll also have to be conscious that such forces inimical to the interests of India will have to be tackled also at another level on law and order or on the intelligence side.
Okay. Come December and people in India dread traveling in trains, given the fact that the trains crawl in December and January. Now, the biggest question on the minds of the people is, what is the government really doing to remove all these anomalies which we have seen over the years?
I'm delighted you asked me this question because it's something which has been agitating my mind also. In fact, a regular train journey that I usually take is to a Jain temple in Rajasthan called Sri Mahavirji, and I usually used to take it in December, so suffered all the delays and all the problems of the fog myself. We are now looking at introducing modern signaling systems in the Indian Railways, which will ensure that trains talk to each other through technology and will no more be dependent on the red, green, yellow lights which we have been traditionally using maybe for a century now.
And many times the trains have even skipped those signals.
Which is a very big danger. And therefore, in the fog, when they are not able to see that signal, they are under pressure to go slow and keep looking for that signal. What we are trying to do is move the network towards automated and computer-controlled processes in which, even in the fog, there will not be the pressure of having to search for signals and look at what the signal says. Having said that, there will always be a little concern on the main routes about any potential people or any animals or anything on the track. So for that, the long-term solution will have to be boundary walls along the sides of the railways, particularly in the densely traveled or very busy routes.
Now, I'll go back to the question on the non-fare revenues which you had spoken about, that we are looking at generation of revenue from the non-fare segments as well, like for example parking and other services. But then this also depends on the quality of services which is given to the passengers on the train. Say for example the quality of food which is offered. A lot has been in the past written about the quality of food which is being served, the kind of linen which is provided to the passengers. How is the government really ensuring this quality?
We're trying to work with the caterers. One big challenge before the railways is that we are not able to pay our caterers increased amounts to be able to expand their products or the quality or the extent of services. So we are looking at seeing if we can have cross-subsidy model where he can also offer other eatables. And we are trying to make even the food an optional item. So people who don't want to take the regular food are able to book it online. We have now different stores, different catering companies providing food on the trains in future stops if you book it online. So we're looking at a variety of ways by which customer gets choice.
Okay.
Whether he wants this food or he wants to have his own food booked. Secondly, within this food, we are looking at working with the caterers to see what kind of a menu they can truly make, which can withstand the problems of nature in terms of the time between cooking the food and serving the food.
Okay.
As well as we're bringing in better hygiene standards in the kitchens. And at some stage, I have in my mind that I'll put CCTV cameras on those kitchens and put that feed into public domain.
Okay,
so
that's
that
a brilliant
all of
idea.
you will be able to monitor what's happening in those kitchens.
So we should be ready to see Mr. Piyush Goyal going on some surprise checks on any
I
of the
keep doing
trains.
that on different aspects of the railways, and yeah, why not? Not a bad idea. I'll probably do it soon.
Mr. Goyal, now your one dream of 100% rural electrification as the power minister is almost done. And what is the next big leap in the power sector you're looking at?
Well, I think the understanding of village electrification that this nation has had for all these years was power reaching those villages, which we have completed. Right. Prime Minister Modi does not rest on that. He has already launched Saubhagya. Mr. R.K. Singh, the Honorable Power Minister, is working day and night to ensure that now every household in the country gets connected with a legitimate power connection. He doesn't have to do a Katia connection or take an illegal connection. Of course, there have to be willing consumers. They'll have to make an application for that power. I can't thrust the power connection down somebody who doesn't even apply for it. But we want to make sure that every willing consumer in this country gets a power connection. We are working relentlessly towards that. As you are aware, under the Gram Swaraj Abhiyan, we've already saturated about 20,000 odd villages with all the facilities like Ujjwala Yojana, a power connection, free power connection for everybody, Jan Dhan Yojana account, Jan Dhan account, insurance schemes. We are now taking it to the next level of another 40,000 villages. Okay. And in any case, as far as power is concerned, we are confident that later by the end of this calendar or latest by the end of this fiscal, we'll be able to ensure that every willing consumer in this country gets a power connection.
Okay. One last question before I let you go, and that is a political question with the way the political parties, the opposition parties, the regional parties, all of them are banding together and are talking about a rainbow coalition at the moment. Is BJP or the government really worried about the way these parties are coming together?
The Bharatiya Janata Party and our partners in the NDA are committed to giving a good government to the people of India. We are relentlessly pursuing our agenda of improving the lives of the people of India and shall continue to do so in the next 1 year. Simultaneously, we have a robust party machinery. We have the world's largest political party, over 10 crore members working at the grassroots, connecting with the people, ensuring that the benefits of this government's work reaches the last man at the bottom of the pyramid. The country has seen many such unholy alliances without any base. We are seeing what's happening in Karnataka. It's not even a month old. And we are seeing fissures and we're seeing problems within the alliance partners. Congress itself is becoming almost like a fringe player in the national politics now. Regional players have only their interests of their state. There's no pan-India party today which can really run the government of India in an efficient manner, in an honest manner. And clearly the people of India remember how the Congress in the past has pulled down Mr. Devegowda's government, has pulled down Mr. Chandrasekhar's government, Mr. I.K. Gujral's government. So they are past masters at instability, and they are past masters at keeping personal dynastic interests over and above national interests. I think in this day and age of every person in this country being connected either through media, print and electronic, either through social media, you can't take the people of India for a ride anymore. And I think they really want a government that does good work for the welfare of the people. And it's only Prime Minister Modi and his team who have delivered on what they had set out to do, and whose work of the last 48 months, when seen in the context of the speed, the scale at which welfare measures have happened, infrastructure has grown, will be tested before the people of India when we go to the elections in 2019.
It was a pleasure talking to you, Mr. Goyal.
Thank you.
So that's it on this episode of To The Point. See you next time with another personality. Goodbye and thanks for watching.